Okay, we're here to start our meeting for the City of Erie Historic Review Commission. We'll start, we'll do a roll call for the members. Jean Craig Pepper.
Here.
Here. Dave Brennan's here. Mark Tannenbaum.
Here.
Melinda Meyer.
Here.
Matthew Falcone.
Here.
Jason Wazurek, I think he's joined us on Zoom. And Kathy Rosick. And of course, we have some guests here. Jackie Spry, and of course, our Chuck from City Council is here as our liaison. Okay, for the meeting minutes, the approval meeting minutes. Would anyone like? Did everybody review the meeting minutes from? There was 3 sets of meeting minutes in there from our past. We're catching up now. And does anyone want to make a motion? First of all, is there any questions on the meeting minutes? We'll start there. Any changes required? So would anyone like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Jean, approving it, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Those in favor, say aye.
Hey. Hey.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Okay. Let me see. The next item on our agenda, it's not really on the agenda, but for public comment, I don't think there is any public here to speak. Usually would have it at this time. And I did want to make a note from some information that we heard that all the meetings are live now for anyone listening. There's live streaming, so you can always listen in. But if you want to come speak to us or have some input, we'd love to have you in. But they're only live during our meetings. If there's a board member out there that needs to Zoom in for any particular reason, we need to make special arrangements to make sure that happens. And I think that's it for that announcement for joining the meetings. Okay, we'll start with old business and an update on the historic preservation plan.
Dave, I added this. I figured since we're sort of coming to the tail end of the preservation planning process, that this should just be a standing item on the agenda. At this point, the survey, there's a public survey that is still live. No, it just ended.
On Friday.
On Friday, okay. So the public survey for asking for comments on the preservation plan ended. I think we didn't get a great response.
There were like something like 70 or 80
Yeah,
responses.
so 70 or 80 responses, and then we'll follow up with the Lakota group to get a summary of what those are, and then I think the next step for.
That might be Jason.
Oh, Jason, is he here? No?
Not sure. I'm guessing that he's online. Does that beep beep? Does that mean anything?
Yeah, that means he's
He's
asking
on.
to be admitted
Okay.
in.
So we'll review the survey responses to see if they have any major impact to the draft of the plan, and then take steps to incorporate changes if needed, and then we'll bring the draft back to. Okay, he's there. Back to the commission.
Okay. And then they'll once everything's set, we'll then resend it out and publish it that it's now final, and let everybody know that there it is. That we're all set to go now. We're moving forward.
At this point, I guess the protocol for plans through the city is actually still a fairly new process. What the city has done in the past with neighborhood plans is they have sent them to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation, and then on to City Council for a resolution of adoption. So it's not the official adoption process like you would that you would follow for a comprehensive plan, but there is essentially an acceptance, an official acceptance via resolution by City Council. I don't know that I don't know if the HRC has discussed what the protocol that they would like for this plan. But that's something that we can decide on later. But that has been the protocol that I think has worked well in past planning processes. Is it Planning Commission and then on to City Council for a resolution of adoption. Of course, the HRC would be the body that reviews and then submits it to Planning Commission.
Yeah, it makes sense to have that buy-in and the extra notifications.
I guess maybe with the council's liaison here, if maybe we could even ask if that sounds like an appropriate
Makes
protocol
sense.
for this plan as well. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments or questions regarding the update?
So, just want to make a point to, if possible, I'm not sure if if it's possible, Kathy and I had some back and forth, if it's possible to get a draft copy of the plan up on the project website, because the survey was used to collect information from the public, but the actual draft of the plan wasn't available through the website. So the only access to the content from the plan was what was presented in the survey. So there isn't an availability of the draft plan for the public. It's just the content of the survey. And now that it's closed, that means that there's really no opportunity for the public to take a look at the draft version of the plan that would go forth to the Planning Commission, to City Council.
Yeah,
So
that's a good
just a
point.
suggestion.
That's a good
Making
point.
sure that Lakota puts it up on the project website.
I can reach out.
Okay.
Let them know.
And then, again, we don't have to talk about this today, but at some point, I think we probably want to have a discussion about how we will evaluate forward momentum and or successes or achievements with the plan. So at some point, we'll want to, whether that's an annual review or I don't know, an annual presentation to City Council. However we want to do this, I think that, we should develop a process by which we hold ourselves accountable for implementing the key recommendations of the plan.
So maybe a plan of attack strategy, like a yearly, what's going to be proposed to get done?
Yes, what did we accomplish in the year?
Success rubric. Is it working? Do we follow the rules?
Did we get done what we wanted to get done in year 2? Did we get done what we wanted to get done in year 3, 4? Just something to hold us all accountable for getting this plan implemented.
Sounds good. Okay, any other comments or questions? Do you want to move to the update of the CLG grant application?
Just a quick, it's going to be a very quick update. We had discussed applying for the CLG project grant, which was due February 1st, to look at us getting a funding to assist with the developing residential design standards. That grant was not, we were not able to apply for that. The city was not able to put forward an application, but we'll look to do that next year. I think that there's still, it's not necessarily a detriment. We still have 3 active grants with the state. 3 of them, well, actually 4. One's still open to pay for the preservation plan. We have 3 active ones, 1 CLG, 2 Keystone grants to perform the citywide survey, which will take a lot of our time. So it's not necessarily a setback for us. I don't think it is, but we will look to apply for that next year, the next round of funding to do the design standards. So that's the only update I have for that one.
Okay. Any comments or questions from anybody? Okay, let's move to new business, and the first item is the Historic Building Survey RFP. Kathy, I know you sent out a draft ahead of time with that start, and I get some communications, so thank you for having being in front of that. So the point is to discuss that and to get any comments during the meeting with that RFP.
Yeah, I just took an outline of the RFP. Most of this is already done, but it's a lot of boilerplate that the HRC doesn't really need to spend an appreciable amount of time on. Highlighted the sections where I thought that getting your feedback and your input would be of help. As Melinda had pointed out at the last meeting, the preservation plan has, in the recommendation section of the preservation plan, did a very good job of providing guidance on how to prioritize. One, it's the first implementation action step. Sorry, I was getting an email from Jason. So I used a lot of that to build the content into at least that first section project description and background. Just wanted to get, so I think, Dave, if it's all right with you, we'll just go through the highlighted sections.
Yep.
And I'll ask for any outstanding items or issues that you would like to want to make sure is incorporated. The goal of this survey is to try to obtain a citywide survey for historic preservation and historic resources. We understand that's a fairly significant undertaking, and it may not be feasible to touch all areas of the city. So in that regard, we have put in a sort of a phasing plan, which you see in your map that's attached. So, Melinda, you've certainly been through the process more than, and maybe even Matthew, you've been through a surveying process. We would ask through the RFP to work with the consultant and have them advise us how much of the city they believe they could get done for the amount of funding that we have, and we think it'll be a significant portion. So we'd essentially check off the phasing as it's represented in the map. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Is there anything glaringly missing from this approach?
So you tell in the RFP, you tell each of them what the cost is, and then they're going to answer, this is how many areas or locations we're going to be able to take care of.
It is, and I guess this is a question for the group. Is it something that the consultant will be able to respond to within the proposal, or is it something you select where you would select the most qualified consultant and then work with them once you've selected them to negotiate how much of the city is done? Is there a
I mean, it's public, so anyone can respond.
It is,
Want to
and
see it,
the
so-
budget will be in, as you can see, the budget is there, it's very clear, so the consultants will know what they're working with. It's actually 36,000 parcels, but not all of them are historic. There's a lot of vacant parcels too, so just wondering what your thought is on that approach. Should we try to see what they can pack in, or is it something that's negotiated?
Are they gonna make a proposal?
Yeah, they'll submit proposals.
The ones that I've seen usually send.
Do we have any?
Oh, hold on.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The ones that I've seen generally focus on specific neighborhoods, and it's kind of the latter option that I think you alluded to, because the intent is really to be able to not only to conduct a survey, but also be informed by public meetings during the process. So kind of packing more in can add kind of to the logistics of conducting the survey and having these community conversations. So it seems like it'd be wise to set the boundaries and then work with the RFP respondents to ensure that they're able to cover kind of what needs to be done within that space.
And so you're saying, Matt, that so maybe something that happens after they're selected. I think it's important to, my thought is, what's really important is to make sure that the entire neighborhood, so you don't do a portion of a neighborhood, because there is you know, we are asking for the neighborhood context and the history of the neighborhood and the context of an entire unit of a neighborhood, so,
Right.
okay, that's helpful. Any other thoughts on that? I mean, that seems reasonable, I just wanted to get your opinion as.
What, have we received any?
No, we have not, the RFP has not been issued.
Okay.
This is, you're providing input to finalizing the draft RFP.
For the RFP, okay.
I think what's typical for these type of RFPs, like speaking architecturally, is, you know, I like RFQs to kind of get, maybe pick out the top three and then get a proposal price from them. But I'm not sure if that's typical with this type of work or not.
That's a good I'm not as familiar with multiple, I've not worked with multiple survey RFPs, so I don't know if it's an RFQ process.
What
or-
RFQ, just to pick out like
qualifications.
three and then have them submit an RFP for, that gives a fee for it.
I can ask that question of.
I mean, I don't
of
want to add a
SHPO.
lot of static to it. I'm just trying to
Mhm,
think of a
mhm.
process to look at it fairly, that
Yeah.
we
I-
use the time wisely.
I would think that there's a lot of qualified firms within the state who can do this work. I mean, I do see these come across, at least my desk, a lot. We just don't typically compete for survey work. But any thoughts on RFQ versus RFP? Proposal, right, they're putting in a cost proposal, we'll do this for this amount of money, this for this amount of money. Qualifications is, this is who we are, this is what we've done, and you select, and maybe you don't,
Don't you
that's
want both,
which ones that
really?
you want to work with.
In the grant, it may specify that you can only go out for RFP.
And that's a question for the SHPO. I have sent this to SHPO. They will be providing us guidance on a lot of these sections. So I can ask that, of course, of them as well.
One of the things to be cognizant of as you move through the process is kind of exactly what is being surveyed. So traditionally, the way surveys were done is looking specifically at architecture and architectural sites. But I know that from going through the city's preservation plan, that the city's looking at things a bit more holistically. So things like green spaces, things that you wouldn't otherwise see in an architectural survey, I know are important to the cultural heritage here and also part of our plan. And that could end up being a point of negotiation or something that we would want to put in as a stipulation with the RFP kind of as we go forward. And I know it leaves a little bit of wiggle room, but there's room to negotiate kind of what that looks like. Because obviously things that are, perhaps of archaeological significance might not show up on the survey report, but surveying the parks and making sure to take pictures of and record, objects, significant statues, monuments, things like that are also kind of of relevance.
Okay, good point.
The only other question that I had about kind of the scope is in the map that identifies kind of each of these different areas to be surveyed, and it also identifies already listed National Register Historic Districts and those that have been determined eligible. It's not clear whether or not those would be resurveyed from the map. Is somebody perhaps working in kind of Zone 1, would they also be resurveying, I believe it's 6th Street, and similarly, if someone was working in Zone 4, would they then also be responsible for conducting an architectural survey of like Frontier Place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are, okay, that's a good question.
And there have been significant changes in select areas of the city and select resources since initial evaluation has been completed by the SHPO. And so they have, from time to time, suggested updated information on resources. So this goes back to the question of funding and what can and cannot be funded. But for example, a lot of investment has been made with the West 6th Street Historic District, and so that work may have an impact on the conditions of the property as they are documented by the State Historic Preservation Office. So again, just kind of piggybacking on that, it is a question of what the funding will allow with regards to the historic resources that have already been looked at and updating of content.
And as far as a priority, if, let's say, the first 4 neighborhoods, or I think that's, or areas identified in this map are the highest priority, been established, does resurveying and updating of the existing historic districts then also become the priority, or does that happen after you go through all the neighborhoods? What's your reaction here?
I would suggest we not resurvey them.
Right.
Oh, okay.
If,
I would think it would take away resources to do new things. I think it's some information we already have.
Okay.
You,
So you're,
you want to take the resources and
Yep.
apply to new information.
Okay.
Rather than updating information we already have, although that's
So-
not improved. You know.
existing recognized districts are not the resurveying of them is not a priority at this time. Okay.
and I would say the same for districts that have been determined eligible. The next step in the planning process, from my perspective, would be to move those into the actual National Register process, so that their eligibility could move on to being officially registered in the National Register of Historic Places.
So you're saying that would be a separate step, and
Yes.
those two are not the highest priority, is to get the city surveyed in its entirety as much as possible.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay, that was helpful. Any other?
Are they actually submitting a schedule, or they're just saying that they could do it in 1 year?
I would have them submit a schedule based on, and I had suggested a year would be sufficient, but that can be extended if there needs to be an extension.
Now, do we interview everyone that applies, or do we give someone the ability to filter through them first and recommend to the board who we should
I
interview?
would suggest that either a committee of this body be
Mhm.
formed, or this body you review them, much like we did Lakota Group.
Right.
We did that with the Lakota Group, selected ones that you wanted to interview, and then interviewed them.
Okay.
Based on, I believe we had a scoring metrics fund. My memory serves me, but sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
And then there was a phone interview.
Mm-hmm.
You were able to ask questions directly.
Yeah, the city
Bless you.
has a process in place for issuing bids. So we would post the RFP for a certain period of time on our public sites, and then I would assume we would share those proposals with the HRC, and then you would make a determination who you would want to interview.
Okay.
Is there anybody that's local that's able to do this at all, or is it statewide or national, or is there anybody?
I don't know if any, I would look to Melinda, who's done more local survey work.
Yeah, so Preservation Erie, we've had to go out of town.
Really?
So, yes, I mean, you can find firms out of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo, like the Lancaster, Philadelphia areas. But yes, professional preservation firms that do this type of work just aren't here in Erie. No, not here in Erie.
Is there some- Then the other question, if we want to move on to schedule and budget, the budget is the budget, what we have available. Because there are multiple sources of grant funding, two Keystone, which runs through the state, one is, and then a CLG grant. We've been asked to separate a section or a task of the project to allow the I'm going to say better accounting when we can invoice for one specific task to the CLG program versus Keystone. So the thought was public engagement, communication, marketing, and strategy is an easy task that could be pulled out, and that could then be used for the CLG reimbursement. That was a recommendation of Bill Callahan before Bill Callahan has to take some time off, so he's not able to join us. So just wanted to point that out to you, that we've separated, I thought $12,500 is probably a good substantial budget for community outreach and public engagement. It's really marketing strategy.
So we're asking for them to respond to that as to what they would do.
Well, I'm letting them know that they're going to have to send us 2 separate invoices, so they can account for that in their billing process, and that $12,500 has been dedicated for public engagement and communication. So we would want to see that in the budget that they propose. Unless there's any questions with that, I'd move right into the public engagement and communication strategy to get your feedback. Hopefully I haven't jumped anywhere. I may have jumped a little bit. We'll jump back. But so just pointing that out. But then when we move into the public engagement and communication strategy, which is 3.6, when Jackie and I met with the Lakota group soon after Chris had left, just to get up to speed on the preservation plan. One of the recommendations from Nick, I'm not going to say his last name, do it justice, was to really build community excitement around the survey work. And so that's as best as we can. So that's where this idea of how do we start how does the consultant then come, and we would want them to propose what they would do to build that excitement through communication, marketing, as people are out there doing this survey work. How would they build that? So I don't know if anyone had any thoughts or ideas to help bolster that idea. That's right up in this section. Don't throw stones at us, but please come out and tell us all about, those kinds of exciting things about your house. Matthew's laughing, so.
Polite smiles. I think that the more transparency that can be brought into the process when we're doing community engagement, the better. I know that folks will really want to understand why the surveys are being done and kind of what comes next. So the more we're able to talk about the city's preservation program and the accessibility to that, as well as how being listed on the National Register might be of a point of community pride, economic incentives for redevelopment, that sort of thing. That's really important to get out in the messaging. Otherwise, an ambiguous kind of survey can often be really off-putting for communities and for members of the community. And I think that we have a lot of chance to talk about, preservation kind of starting out in earnest and doing this in a systematic way so that we're able to identify resources throughout the entire city and not just focused on kind of individual neighborhoods or corridors that I think we all have an acknowledgement that are historic.
Okay.
I think it's important to allay people's fears. I think a lot of times people hear about a survey and they can imagine, oh my gosh, this is going to be detrimental to me and detrimental to my real estate, than it would be positive. I think people jump to that conclusion.
Okay.
And just in terms of the RFP, because yes, what you're saying is correct, and hopefully the new preservation/planner would be working in unison with the consultant, obviously, as that champion for everything, including our communications department and our neighborhood resources department. I mean, we have a lot of now resources that we're going to be working together a little bit more. But in terms of the RFP, it's a little ambiguous. There's like what kind of engagement are they going to do specifically? The city, I can see how we would engage, but are we going to be asking them to lead those engagements and be community meetings and all? Are we doing that again?
I don't know.
We just went through that process.
Well, see,
a little bit.
my suggestion is allow the consultant to submit a proposal of how they would address that. So let them do their job and be as creative as possible. Just give them sort of a basic framework of what you're looking for, and so some of the comments that you made will add into that, and then let them propose, and then you can make some judgments.
Picture some type of press release where you get the press involved so you can get on TV, possibly. But again, that's not me to do that.
Right,
And
that's
also
them.
maybe even an op-ed or something like that.
Yeah, so we'll let them
And-
make their suggestions.
And maybe we might want to add, not only are they, and I'm sorry, I may be looking at the wrong, but here's the public engagement right here. Something, how are they working, not only in the community, but also in the city internally with the different departments. Some of those things are new, the branch of the planning department is just starting this neighborhood resource branch, so we're going to have capacity for people to intake calls or help out if there's other ways that we'll be able to do some of that. So,
Well, isn't the driving force for all of this so that we can create legitimate local districts? I mean, just, aren't we trying to get more
Well-
justification for coming up with our local districts?
That's a piece of it. That's a piece of why you would do the work of this, or the survey work. But it's also for, actually, the discussion of the survey came long before the HRC was even
Right, for National
contemplated.
Historic.
But it's also
Right.
for Section 106 reviews at the state level. Now you've identified your historic resources. So as the city is moving forward with state and federal funding to do X, Y, and Z, it's going to be much easier
Having that.
having the survey done.
Okay.
So there's a lot of benefits to the survey, but that's one of them.
Okay.
I was going to say, and also think about those organizations that are working actively in the city right now. They are not, they're private entities, right? Nonprofits
Right.
and for-profit development firms that are working in the city. So entities like BEST, HANDS, our West Bayfront, EDDC, the Erie Downtown Partnership, all of those entities, the survey will be able to inform their decision-making when it comes to specific properties in the city.
Okay.
And that would be a good two-way conversation.
Or private developers too, right?
Yes. Okay, that was helpful. Thank you for your feedback on that. I will hop back up to 3.1, which is background research. I think this list is pretty pretty exhaustive, but if there's anything else that might be missing, this is taken from the preservation plan, and I think, Melinda, you had provided most of these documents to the Lakota group, or dug them up for them. It would be great. I think we had talked about too, and I will put in a plug for Melinda's suggestion, that these be held in some repository for the Historic Review Commission to be able to access a little bit easier.
Can't we kind of put them on our website somewhere?
I
mean, we don't have a website, the city has a website, right, Jackie? And we're going to be
Yeah.
part of that.
yeah, you're listed, right, you have a presence. I can find out if we can
Yeah.
put those documents on there in a PDF format. I don't see why not.
But we'll certainly have them available for the selected consultant. Anyone have any thoughts of anything that's missing? I didn't think so, but I just wanted to point out. It's a lot of work that has been done, which is great to see. Okay. Moving on, we're down to deliverables, 3.7 on page 3. These are fairly typical deliverables, but I just want to make sure that this is capturing your expectations. So we would have a kickoff meeting at the beginning of the project with the Historic Review Commission, the city, and SHPO staff to review the scope of work, project schedule, and address any questions or concerns with, I'll just walk through this and then we'll go back if we need to, or stop me. Address any concerns or questions. We would have monthly phone conferences with the consultant, and I didn't know if it's the HRC and staff, if you wanted the consultant to, your expectation, we'd want them at our monthly meetings to give us an update. We can certainly make sure that that's part of it. Jackie, there'll be.
Report, and if we have questions, we can ask them to.
Submit a written report?
Yeah,
Okay,
it
I
might
mean,
be
that's just
easier.
something we want to have
That'd
in
be
this.
easier.
Okay. So you expect a monthly written report to the HRC. And then, of course, this will be, they'll have, much like we do, Jackie, we'll have check-ins with them on a regular basis. Okay.
Hopefully you'll have a staff lead by then
Yes.
to be the point of contact.
And then I'm still waiting on State Historic Preservation Office guidance on specifically the forms that the type of survey that they want. So they'll feed that information, because now I know it used to be paper forms and now they've gone to an online digital. So I want them to literally feed me that terminology. So this will be based in a GIS format, so it'll be digital, it'll be dynamic and very helpful. So we'll get drafts of that work. And then, I don't know if, at the end, what the deliverable is. What does this look like? This certainly is not a hard copy of 30,000 parcels, or is it a digital file? And I actually thought that would be interesting to hear from, Matthew and Melinda, what your thoughts, expectation, what is the end result of this?
Well, your general public is not going to be, even though the content will be present and available through the state's PA share system, your average resident isn't going to know about that system, know how to access information in that system. So
So are you suggesting we ought to do it ourselves?
So here are some lessons learned. I'm not providing directives, I'm providing just, here's some things to consider, right? So in 2014, Preservation Erie, our consultants wanted to add website construction to their list of things that they could offer to consultant or to clients, and so we were their guinea pig. And so some things to think about if you choose to create a separate platform from the state's, well, it used to be CRGIS, now it's PA Share, from the state system. Know that information is static unless you're actively updating survey content, right? Or condition related material. So you put it up there, you make it accessible, and you just need to be clear that it is a snapshot of the way things were when the survey was completed. We also encountered members of the public who found their own properties through that and wanted to contribute additional content. They wanted to provide historic photographs. They wanted to provide their own personal written story about the building. And so